They're out there. '24's a 24/7. 24/7. Tejano hits.
COVID vaccines have been approved. TEA pausing school grade report cards and the what else are we talking about?
24/7 Tejano hits.
And Victoria City Manager Jesus Garza going to join us.
All that more. Big deal. Very casual.
Yeah, very casual.
Jesus Garza coming in the studio.
All that more coming up today on the Wayne Carter Show. Morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
How are you today?
I am just I'm very well.
There we go.
I'm starting to worry about how, like in your marriage. Now, see, with T-Lat, I'm just such a newlywed. I was still just hanging on, literally in so many ways. But you got to find ways to spice it up, right? You got to find ways to keep it fresh.
Yes.
So I just want to apologize for peeing in the corner earlier because I was just trying to keep the show exciting for me, and I didn't know what to do, so I just peed in the corner. Figured you'd be okay with that.
I don't know what to say.
Right. It's just, the show is still very fresh to me. It makes me laugh every day. Every day, just you.
And sometimes bits like that fall flat.
That's what made Carson so good was when I did not know that. What makes it work for me is just standing here looking at you in profile, seeing your.
I can't say the same.
Seeing your roguish Russian communist profile
with my Roman nose.
Right. That's it. Let's do the weather. Folks, Wayne Carter Weather is brought to you by our great friends at Deerland Feed. Hey!
Awesome friends.
They've got hay. They've got liquid death for all your bugs and mites and stuff.
They load it up for you, too. They don't just tell you, drive around back and go pick it up yourself.
Don't you feel kind of guilty when you get like 20 T-post and Lacey Durham's out there with gloves on, loading them up?
Slight pang at about the 18th post.
Right. You feel a little guilt. 64 degrees in Victoria under cloudy skies. In fact, folks, it's a little drizzly. Be careful. The roads are wet. Allen's Wrecker Service doesn't need business this early.
But they're getting it. You saw a guy into the wall in the loop.
Yeah, you're right there at Millette Drive, right by Holy Family. A guy had come like south on Millette and had turned right to go like towards the Texan store, towards West High School.
Towards 87.
And somehow had lost it. I don't know how this happens. If there'd been a house there, it would be a Caleb Shaw. Lost it, jumped the median, and like ran T-boned into the wall of the overpass. I told Ash there were 2 VPD cars, 100 flares, 3 fire trucks, an ambulance, and a helicopter. It's all there because you just never know. Really, there were 2 police cars, though. 2 Ford Fiestas or whatever they drive. Escape. The Escape from Ford. No, it's a Explorer. But the high today is only 79, but it's drizzly. So just be aware that you need to be careful on the roads. Matt Boucher, good morning, sir.
First one in, Scott Tomko, good morning. CW Beam, Chris Conrad, Christina Wise, the Iceman is in, David Glass, Judge Posey, good morning. Heather Monroe checking in from Tirana.
MUNRO, very efficient, Canadian, very, very efficient.
HR heading home. I think he was in Houston yesterday. Natalie Mayer, good morning. Bobby Leister, hope you're on the mend, sir. Scott Tomko says Time Magazine disappoints yet again. See,
this
Scott,
is the man of the year.
Tomko or Scott, Time Magazine doesn't disappoint me because I don't read it.
Would they make Joe Biden the man of the year?
I'm sure he's one of. I think they had like 3 or something.
So how is Donald Trump not the man of the year with brokering a Mideast peace pact?
2 of them.
2. Good morning, Judge Posey. I don't know how they do that. How does Time sleep at night by not acknowledging They gave Obama.
Well, but don't forget, this is also the magazine that gave Hitler the Man of the Year once. So, I mean, let's just keep it in somewhat perspective here.
There you go.
Andy Ria Jr., good morning. Bobby Leister, Robamore Knipling, Richard King checking in. Patrick Strauss, good morning to you. Scott Snow, Sheriff Louderback.
Here's my
Kerry
question.
Charmula, Justin Glass. There's Don Nicole.
Hi, T-Lap.
James Kurth.
Here, T-Lap says she saw that wreck, too.
Caden asked, how does that happen? That's kind of what I wanted to know as well.
Right, that's what we both said.
Good. Inquiring minds want to know, Caden.
Donnie, what that tells you is that Caden's starting to get cynical like me. He's getting that from me. Like, I would look at him and go, how does that happen? He'd go, I don't know. And, like, that qualifies as a conversation with a 12-year-old.
Or he's going to be an astute driver and go, how the heck does that even happen?
Then he would say, what a bonehead. Because that's something I would say.
Janelle Sarles, good morning.
So here's my question to you.
Yes,
what
sir.
thought process goes in? We were at 336 YouTubers, and then it went to 337. Now, folks, it takes a minute, literally a minute, to go to YouTube, find Wade and Carter, and then subscribe. It's free. You don't have to give them any information. You just subscribe. I'm in.
I got one watching.
Who would go to YouTube and unsubscribe? I mean, what a statement they're making. Who would take the time to go back, even if you just looked once and never went again?
Probably the guy that got mad because yesterday I forgot to post. I forgot to hit go live, so we weren't on YouTube yesterday.
We did all the preliminary stuff. And I want to apologize to the YouTube viewer and tell you that we are moving to a new studio. And when we do, we are going to find a way to give you a better product. If you want to see what we look like and sound like, go to Facebook and go to Wade and Carter.
Bob Wiley says the Goya CEO named AOC the Employee of the Month. It was interesting yesterday because I saw some of this as well, and she's trying to deny that she ever called for a boycott. And I guess you could argue semantically, she didn't exactly boycott. She shared a tweet and then asked people, where are you going to buy your products, right? Or
right.
Buy other products, something like that. I mean, you could easily insinuate she was telling you to avoid Goya at all costs.
Right.
And then she made a statement like, I'm going to, learn how to make my own adobo or something like that, right?
Right.
But yeah, as a result of that whole flap in the summer, Goya products didn't see much of a decline in sales. In fact, people rallied and went and bought Goya products that they probably would never have bought. People that probably have never bought a Goya product went and bought their products.
Bought it. Yeah, they had enough.
Yeah. So she got named the Employee of the Month because she helped increase sales by like 1,000% or something. It was crazy. But somehow that became, she mustn't have enough with the Green New Deal to talk about. So yesterday, this somehow came up again. And
I've never asked you this.
And must have been a best of 2020 segment for AOC and her tweets.
I expect you to know, but how old is she? I mean, I got her like 30. Tops?
I think she's right around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Complaining, again, about student loan debt, but I mean, did you really need to go to Columbia to be a bartender? You couldn't have just gone to NY Staten Island?
Right. Well, she acted like she grew up in Brooklyn and all that. She really didn't. She grew up, she was a child of privilege, and that's fine. I mean, I don't hate her for her parents let her go to college in Columbia with she doesn't have any college debt. Don't let her lie to you.
Brad Miner, good morning to you, sir. So the TEA announced that they're gonna put a pause on the school report cards for 2021, which is probably a good thing considering that most schools in the state are online.
So now the teachers don't really have to teach, and the results aren't really being tabulated. Is that kind of the deal? Because I'm going to tell you something. My kids are out at industrial, and they love it, and industrial enjoys this great reputation. So let's just say that I'm sure that the industrial effort isn't any less than the Victoria effort, just being fair, keeping it real based on stereotype. And I can tell you that my boys didn't do squat When they were home, it was like Fun-Filled Friday. Hey, let's color this and then throw it away. There wasn't any learning going on. Let's don't kid ourselves. There was nothing. It was a bag of nothing.
I mean, when, talking with a friend and his daughter's homework assignment was to go out and take a picture of a rock and submit it.
Right. And that's hard to grade.
Yeah. I mean, and then I've talked to a teacher who shall remain nameless, and they figured out the kids are gaming the system. They log on for their class.
Yep.
And then they go, they don't turn their cameras on. Then they go and they make breakfast, they go shower, they do whatever, feed the dogs, who knows.
Well, the school district's acting like this is a short-term deal.
Or they log on
forever.
They log on to the start, and then they quietly disappear, and then they log back on to the end. There's a whole bunch of ways these kids are trying to scam the system.
Am I wrong? You temporarily suspend grading because this is going to end here in the next 6 weeks, and then we're going to get serious, I tell you. Well, what happens if you go from the 4th to the 8th grade?
Through this?
Through this. What's 2 plus 2? Jello.
We go through 4 years of this, and then we're going to start seeing everybody go, oh, yeah, you were right. I guess the cure was worse than the disease.
T-Led had a picture yesterday. Oh, look, there's Kendall. Hello, Kendall. Kendall, now's a good time to tell you, Kendall, so you can do the appropriate typing on the bottom of your page. Tomorrow, or as he would say in Canadian, tomorrow.
It's my twin brother's birthday.
Sorry, tomorrow is Ash's twin brother's birthday. So Ash will be, let me see.
Happy birthday to you, Corey.
Here, one. You'll be 50, 2, 3, 1. 51 tomorrow.
I should have gone Bob Barker on you. Lower.
Right. Nice.
Could have played, what was it, the clock game or whatever.
Tomorrow. So before you people start telling me I look bad at 58, look at 51 over here.
Yeah, look how good it looks.
Come on.
I'm like a day over 25.
Uses egg yolks in his hair for products. He's a Rastaman from
David Goff says Biden Harris the Time Person of the Year.
Yeah, they are one person. She's got the balls.
Boy, it's been amazing how quiet he's been since November 3rd.
He's got dementia, bro.
I wonder if he even knows which leg or foot he supposedly broke. Did he put the boot on the wrong foot?
He did have it on the wrong foot. Let's do this. Let's take a quick early break, and then we're going to be joined by Victoria's city manager, Jesus Garza. I got it on good accord that Jesus was going to try to do some out-of-town Christmas shopping this morning, and our studio just happened to be right on the way by. He's already done all of his in-town shopping, keeping it local, buying it from the good folks in Victoria. Now he's got to go out of town for a couple of items, and he's just blowing by.
And we're the convenience stop.
We're the convenience stop right next to, the Guadalajara taco stand on the way out of town. He's leaving us on a jet plane. We'll talk to him about that.
Don't know if he'll be back again?
Right. There you go. I
know the lyrics.
Our whole show is 70s rock and roll retread. The other day he goes, I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend.
That was 81.
He heard it from a friend. You were messing around. Hey, folks, Allen's Record Service, please watch the drizzle-covered roads.
I bet you could give an Allen's gift certificate as a stocking stuffer.
That'd be a nice one. You bet.
Peace of mind.
Record Service, 578-6300. That's the number you need when it's time.
The only number you need.
No doubt about it.
BCS Rocket Oilfield Services is the only locally owned and authorized AT&T retailer. If you're looking for an iPad so your kids can be more interactive with their classes in the spring, what better gift to give than an iPad from the only locally owned and authorized AT&T
and they can
retailer.
Play games on it while they're not really paying attention in online school because nobody's keeping score. There's no grades. This would be a great time to be in school. Hey, I'm all district. Really? Football, basketball, and baseball. We played no games. Every kid gets a patch.
Pump up your resume for college.
Everybody moves on to do not pass go. Do not collect $200. The monopoly of public school.
The ultimate no child left behind here.
Right.
Is this one.
Well, that's one reason the schools are ugly because they're feeding everybody. I mean, they're feeding everybody. It's like, you're 37 and you work at Formosa. Well, here, have a turkey plate. I mean, VISD, just drive by. They'll feed you. That's your tax dollars at work. Thank you, state government.
Federal, I think.
Whatever. Still your tax dollars at work. You think Jesus Garza couldn't fix some potholes with all that free food? In fact, it might do better than the hot mix they use on some of those potholes. Just
It's not even in here and you're already roasting.
Throw some of that turkey and dressing over there on airline.
Well, 3 weeks later, it probably would fill a pothole.
I tell you what, I'm tough on that guy. I like him, but I'm tough on him. You wait till I get him in here. He's in the green room right now. Well, it's soundproof. He can't. I don't want to get that glare. He can give you that glare. He's a young guy, but he can give you that glare that says, "Hey, Raleigh, you may not be here next week. You keep talking like that."
I can back it up because I'm a young guy.
I've got equipment. I got places to bury you.
The hands are faster, and I can outrun you if they don't do any damage. That's how it is.
The Raleigh McCoy bulkhead right there across from the duck pond where the road has subsided. The siding is gone. We could just put Raleigh in there, just smear him in there, kind of like stucco. That would stop the erosion. There's a lot of Raleigh, too. You can spread him out in there. We'll see how Jesus feels about that. No holds barred. I talked to City Manager Garza yesterday. He said, if you have a question, if you have a concern, if you have a comment, that's why he's here. You've heard of Face the Nation? This is Meet the Legion of Wade and Carter people. They all go to Chesapeake Furniture Company. For 100 years, 116 West One Lynn, only for 70 at that location, but for 100 years in downtown Victoria. Furniture right now, 50% off, celebrating 100 years in downtown Victoria. Bobby Leon and his family do a great job. You'll be glad you went down there.
50% off all furniture, celebrating 100 years.
And then, of course, today and tomorrow, get my Veracruz. When you're doing your holiday shopping and you're out, tomorrow is a bonus Saturday. They do it every year. It's their way of giving back, saying, hey, I know you're out. I know you're tired. I know you're hungry. Give us your huddled masses yearning to eat Mexican food. Get to Veracruz. We already got a caller. These people ain't messing around. Jesus on the hot seat coming up next. Hang on.
We'll get to the call in just a second here because we're gonna set up for Jesus Garza to join us. City manager will be in studio, and appreciate the accessibility and his willingness to come in and take your calls and questions. Real quick, Pfizer getting approval and as BioNTech or something. I think it was the other company that got approval from the FDA yesterday. 17-4 was the vote from the committee to approve the vaccines, which I believe the two of them together have about a 95% effective rate. So that might be a good jumping off point after this caller. So good morning, Wade and Carter. Who's on the line?
Hello, Wade and Carter.
Oh, so I pushed through. Oh, nobody there.
Check in. Call back. 575-9509.
575-9509. With that news, Jesus, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
They're already running scared of you.
Yeah, y'all have great restaurants, by the way. It's a great pit stop.
Glad,
great. Glad you enjoyed that. There's not one, is there?
Yeah, it was locked.
Well, you need the key?
During the next break, we'll let you go.
All right.
Folks, if he seems a little antsy, it's just he's young. He's got to go. Daddy,
too much coffee this morning. So Pfizer approves the vaccine. What does that mean for the city? How does the city play into the early rollout, or does it?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm excited to be on again. Thank you.
We're excited to have you.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to one day taking over and one of y'all's spots.
Sure.
I can come hang out.
Well, you've done it. You've got your own media outlet now. Have you noticed this? They've got their own. They've got a web page.
This is the 21st century. We don't mess around.
But what I like is
Ashley Striegel deserves all the credit.
There's people that hate that. I'm being serious. I like it because I like getting our news right from the source. But there are people that say, "Oh, well, that's not objective reporting." I mean, the city's telling you what they're doing. Well, I'm like, well, how much more do you want to know? Of course, they're telling you what they're doing. But you know what I'm saying? You've heard it.
But they don't understand that.
They think
the city doesn't. The city doesn't have to objectively report.
Yeah, no kidding. Am I right?
I mean, if we're not gonna communicate what we're doing, nobody's gonna do it for us, right?
Well, yeah, no, and it's the way to do it now. Yeah, and it's no different than press releases that used to go out. And right. I mean, the way people consume media has changed, and press releases to all traditional media doesn't work like it did 20 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I commend you guys for getting with the times and actually being ahead of larger cities that people think are cutting edge. We're there, and people are still somewhat critical.
The only thing I need to do is get with Kate Garcia and say, hey, let's make it so that she links those stories, no kidding, to the Wade and Carter webpage.
You could do that.
I mean, that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, for the right fee, that would be.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, we wouldn't charge you much to promote the city. What would we charge you?
I don't know.
Okay, let's just call it
Anyway.
We'll do it for free.
Yeah.
How are you? How's your family?
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank
Good.
you. We're well, thank you. Going back to your question,
Everybody's been staying healthy through this.
It's the ADD hour.
Yeah,
Brought to you by Adderall.
Yeah. Well, you had a question, about obviously the vaccine in the city, and obviously it's a coordinated effort with the health department. We of course have first responders at the city that more than likely would be part of a first phase of a rollout, specifically our paramedics and those folks. And obviously, police officers and others might come in phase 2. And so for us, it's a matter of simply coordinating efforts internally to ensure, who's going to receive the vaccine, who's not, educating employees on the pros and the cons and some of the data that's out. Obviously, there's a lot of apprehension behind it. So we want to make sure that as an employer, we can do the best we can to help our employees make an educated choice.
So as a young guy, as a fit guy, a guy that watches his regimen, do you personally, this has got nothing to do with the city of Victoria, but do you personally have some reservations about, give me that first round of vaccines? I saw one the other day, Dawn brought home a picture and it showed 3 people. They were side by side, and it looked like mug shots, but they all had the droop mouth, like they had Bell's palsy. And it said that they were from the first match.
Yeah.
Do you worry about that at all personally?
Sure. I mean, obviously, there's going to be a little bit of apprehension, I think, regardless, of anybody's choice. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, the responsible thing to do is to take the vaccine and play your role, right, and do your part to help out.
Yep.
James Kerr says it's all voluntary as per the DOD brief that he watched a couple of days ago. I guess that's for the military purposes, but there are countries that are mandating it for certain people. That
Yeah. Well, and I think from my understanding, it's also still to be determined. I could be wrong, but from my understanding, it's still to be determined on whether employers can mandate it.
That'd be a tough one.
So so there's still a lot of back and forth on, what's the direction, what flexibility do employers have? Because obviously some jobs are more at risk than others. And so
you can see healthcare requiring it, but maybe not an engineering firm.
Richard King asks, are you going to make it mandatory for first responders to take it, or is it still voluntary?
Yeah, as of now, it's voluntary. I mean, that's the direction that we're receiving. That's the approach. But hopefully in the near future, we get some more clarity behind that.
Okay, good. How's how are things progressing? I want to commend you and the folks that were behind the big words today. It's Big Word Friday. In case you missed that.
You're showing your maturity.
Right.
Well, on
Tomorrow's his birthday.
Yeah, on the eve of the birthday, you kind of got to show that at 51 years old, you learned something.
That's why I'm wearing my facial cover, by the way.
Old people, old guys like us.
This is for y'all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Keeping us safe.
We've
we've already had it, so we're
Jesus
good.
Gar's an international man of mystery.
Preparing for the New Year's Eve masquerade.
Right. You were going to commend me.
Yeah, I was going
to miss that.
No, I'm not.
Come back with a commendation.
I really like the effort that was put forth for the drive-through Christmas parade.
Absolutely.
And it just goes to show that no good deed goes unpunished, and you can't please anybody in today's society. Oh, I had to wait in line too long. Oh, you were trying to come in on Staten. Okay, I understand.
Well, but not only that, the same people that don't realize that in order to get a curbside seat for a regular parade, they're down there at 3:00 in the afternoon for a parade that begins at 6.
Right.
So they're waiting for 3 hours downtown, and they're complaining about having to wait for 2 hours in their car to get through the drive-by parade.
Waiting at 2:05 and in a lot better mood.
Staff did a great job.
Yeah, no,
it was a great virtual event. It's the little things, right?
It was creative. It was
right.
Almost like spontaneous. It was cool. I thought.
Unfortunately, we couldn't do anything about the weather. Obviously, it wasn't great weather, but we you can't control that.
No. But I like the creativity and the fact that you didn't just mail it in and say, no Christmas parade this year because of the COVID, to heck with it.
Yeah.
Your staff still went out there, planned for a parade. People in the community put some floats together, and then people in this community still found a way to complain about things that go on like they always do. It really just.
But you did good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And by the way, now it would not be unlike us to have panned the event on Monday and then chatted it up today with you here, because we can be, we
both sides of the fence.
Yeah. We learned at the Joe Biden Media School. But the reality is, we both came in and unsolicited. I said, "Man, did you see that? What a great event!" We talked about that.
I think it was Monday or Tuesday.
Monday or Tuesday. You said, "Hey, it's a great idea. Hats off to the city for that."
Who do we have to give that? Who gets the tip of the cap for coming up with the drive-by parade? Was there one person?
It's a team effort.
Okay.
Obviously, the Parks Department was very involved because of it being in the park.
Yeah.
But Ashley Struble and her team were also very involved because it was a virtual event as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't Wi-Fi at the park, right? And so the fact that they were able to figure out a way to do a virtual event with live streaming on Facebook in the back of a trailer, driving through the park. I mean, that was a big deal. There was a lot of effort and planning that went into that.
So you made a natural segue for us, because I think people, where everybody can get excited, even though they may say, I'll give you $10 million. Some would say, well, let's put 6 into that golf course, or let's build a new clubhouse, or whatever. Tell us about the park, because I think people get excited about the possibilities of the park. And Ash and I often talk about the lost opportunity of not somehow monetizing Riverside Park as a way for the city to receive funds, if for no other reason than to put back into the park.
Right.
Tell me what your big picture 30,000-foot plans are for the park.
And I served on the Parks Commission for 6 years, a few years back. And
one of how we got here.
Well, and one of my biggest complaints was that there was always an apprehension to do anything in the park because it might flood, and improve infrastructure and those sorts of things down there because of that. And I'm wondering if that mindset has changed at all.
That's the first I hear what you just described.
Okay.
So clearly it's not around.
Good.
They've
forgotten.
We are going through a parks master plan. We're going through several master plans, actually, parks, downtown, drainage master plan, and a couple of others. And so those will help us figure out how to proceed, how to better monetize the park, or quite frankly, just how to improve our amenities across the board. Because even if it isn't necessarily monetizing it directly, we know that enhancing the experience, enhancing quality of life will have a ripple effect in our ability to attract business, to attract more people who are living in town. I mean, we know that all of that is connected and tied together. And so that Parks Master Plan will be a guiding tool for us. But I don't disagree that we can do more, not only at Riverside Park, but with our trails around the city, and even just parks on the south side, at the Lee Tracy Park on the north side. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities within our park system for sure.
What's always interesting to me is that, the pump house was kind of a grand experiment. It's obviously worked. The pump house is an entrenched part of Victoria's dining experience. It's in the rotation for most folks. Mr. Patillo, and I use that, he's part of a team as well, but Mr. Patillo owns another X number of feet, over 300 of riverfront frontage right there to the north or to the right of the pump house, if you're looking at the river. I've thought of because it does flood, that area does flood, up on stilts, and my mind goes to like a Kima type experience where you've got little places. Maybe one's a sports bar, maybe one's a chicken wing place, maybe one is a family fun house, whatever, just right along that way that would just drive people to the park. And I don't, I know that you always end up having to deal with the real logistics of, well, except that, the city charter says, or the parks charter says.
You mean we have to deal with real life?
Right, yeah, because we all deal with hypotheticals that sound great. Like, wouldn't it be great to have a river walk right there?
Yeah.
We could just divert the river. Stop. GVRA says you can't divert the river. We had to learn that stuff. So how do you? So I mean, tell me your big picture. I mean, where do you want to go? What do you see down there? Do you see like a little kiddie train down there in 10 years, or?
Well, for us, it's about amenities, right? And so for us, it's about the recreational aspect of it. And so we know that there are things that the community wants, whether it's dog park, whether it's covered basketball court, whether it's better trails, wider trails.
I promise you, it's dog park. I promise you.
For us, it's finding a way to incorporate some of those amenities and connecting them with the others. Because, and then maybe you visited some larger parks in other communities and larger communities, but oftentimes they're designed in a way where you can park in one place and you can literally, if you wanted to, walk around the entire park. And currently Riverside's, you can do it, but the amenities are kind of spread out. And so we need to find a better way to connect the amenities, have the amenities that people would like. And hopefully that brings more people into the park, and hopefully more people enjoy their experience.
But to be honest, Riverside Park is a lot larger park than many parks that I've been to as well. I mean, it's vast.
Right.
It starts,
that's why you have to almost have parks within the park. You know, and you have certain areas where maybe it's specific for kids. You have areas that are specific for, you know, adult athletics or sports or activities. And obviously you have the trail throughout. And we do need to be conscious of the floodplain. That obviously at the end of the day is real life, right? That there are the floodway actually and the floodplain run through the park. And so that does limit the types of structures that you can build on floodplains and floodways, just because that's the FEMA rules.
Right.
But other cities manage to negotiate that or navigate that without the fear, or even though their parks are right next to big rivers as well. And I guess that's I was never satisfactorily satisfied with the answer.
Sure.
Yeah.
But there are some
ways
specific differences, right? I mean, if you look at it going through our park, there's a lot of curves.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to other communities, it's just a straight line.
True.
Right. So the fact that we have a lot of curves means that our floodplain is much larger, because when it overflows, I mean, it just geographically speaking captures a larger area, right?
And those curves move once it floods.
So you really can't compare us to a park that has a river that has a straight line.
Fair enough.
You know, running through it. And so there are some nuances there that make a difference.
It's powerful, and it's one reason that the ground and everything that is so lush down there, because it's nature. You know, you get the silt, you get what happens. But I can recall as a kid, because it hasn't happened since I've been back here since 11, but I can recall as a kid stopping up where the Rose Garden is now. Of course, they had that. You've got that. Boat ramp right there. They got that closed. They have the gate closed. That little gate closure that's been there has been there forever. But looking out across Riverside Golf Course, and all you see is the tops of the greens, and everything else is underwater. It's like a big lake. And so, you know, the water's only 4 or 5 feet deep across there. You could do it real easy with, you know, just raising everything. So, hey, you've got to have the bottom of your structure has got to be above the 34-foot range or whatever that number is. And
if FEMA allows it.
Yeah, then you just put something on there to divert the logs that come down, because I mean, the water is a powerful deal. But excited about that. Now, Matt Boucher says Parks and Rec has some long-term negotiations going on with some outside stakeholders. I don't know if that triggers something for you. He said, can you comment on that? But I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't either.
There you go, man. He's a county guy.
See if I can find
a county guy.
The question. Looking through here.
Let's see. It says Victoria Parks and Rec is developing a long-term plan with various stakeholders.
Right.
Can you comment on it? And maybe
that's the master plan that we're going through now, and obviously it is including stakeholders, you know, ranging from, you know, the university to the baseball teams that use the park, to Little League, to county folks, city folks, you know, foundation folks, nonprofit folks. So it really is private sector folks. It's a diverse process, and quite frankly, it's going to include the public as well. So soon there'll be surveys that will go out so that anybody in the public can provide feedback. We actually have a centralized site on our website, so that would be victoriatx.gov/masterplans, where people can get information on all of our master plans and all of the surveys that will be going out, because we do want to hear from people on what they'd like to see out there.
Well, here's
Jeff Fonseca says he has his baby oil ready for shirtless volleyball in the new nets. I don't know that we needed to hear that. Thank you, Jeffrey. But
that's a bad visual.
yeah,
but I
maybe
like
those new nets won't be ready quite so soon.
We'll make sure we shoot something.
Yeah, please do.
Hats off to the Crestwood project. I think that's going really well.
Yeah.
So between, say, Ben Wilson and all the way to Laurent, right in that area, there's been inconvenience, but they're going in with concrete roads. It looks really nice.
Janelle Sarles asks, are you going to be soliciting larger companies to build in Victoria? Something other than some of these oil field or retail? Is that? I mean, I know that's not quite in your purview,
You
but
say build or just come, I guess.
To come, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's always the goal. BDC focuses on attracting some big players through primary job recruitment, and obviously they're always working hard to try and do that.
Closer than they've ever been.
And it's not just in the city. I mean, we need to recognize that what happens around us matters. So what happens at the port matters. What happens, down further south or east happens. So all of those things people are involved with. For us, obviously, yes, we focus on retail, we focus on downtown, we focus on medical jobs, we focus on so many other things outside of primary jobs. So it's a team effort there.
Well, you've been in big metropolitan areas. Don't you look at if I go over here to the airport and you and I go up in an airplane, we get to about 500 feet, we can see Port Lavaca. I wonder when you're planning for Victoria, don't you, or how do you get those around you to see that the recent victory, the win that occurred at the Port of Calhoun, get folks to understand that is a direct benefit to our metropolitan area, because we are going to have better shipping capabilities 30 miles away. If you live in Houston, if you live in the Woodlands and you make a product and you have to put it on a boat, it's further to the Port of Houston than it is to the Port of Port Lavaca.
Right.
So, I mean, people that are wanting to build and make stuff, especially stuff for export, can make Victoria their home and have the best of both worlds. You don't have a big city, but you've got a big port right there. I know you see that. We haven't even talked about that. I know you get it. When you live in a city the size of San Antonio, you realize that from Converse Judson to Helotes is further than here to Port Lavaca.
Right.
So how do we get people to have that mindset to think regionally and look at all the amenities we have? If you think regionally, we've got a beautiful lake. We've got a port. You got to think regionally. If you take the city of Houston and transpose that geographic area over us,
Sure. Well, I mean, in my experience with people that I speak with, everybody understands it and gets the importance of it. Could we do a better job of communicating with our regional partners? Absolutely. Michael Leda is doing a great job with the Regional Planning Commission to try and get that group, who already has representatives from the region, to be talking about what's going on. I'm personally a member of the REDAC, which is the Regional Economic Development Advisory Council, which is a subset of the Regional Planning Commission, and there are members on that committee from the surrounding counties. And then we talk about all these things, and they have a strategic plan to leverage some of that regional collaboration. I know that UHV has the Center for Regional Collaboration. And so there are a lot of conversations going on about the benefits of the region. Now, obviously, a lot of the people that I talk to are, counterparts and things like that. I mean, you might have a better sense of the general public on their views on that. But I think most folks would understand that what happens, 15, 20 minutes away from us benefits us in some degree. Maybe people's understanding of what benefit exactly might differ. But I think everybody can get behind the thought that it makes a difference.
Well, what's your take, Ash? Do you get the feeling that, we do a lot with Sheriff Louderback and not so much with T. Michael O'Connor at the time, but now with Justin Marr and at the time Chief Boyd. And we had this, 16 county coalition. Do you feel, I've always heard that the folks in Port Lavaca don't like us much up here. I have. That's what I've just always heard.
Maybe they just don't like you.
It could be me. It could be me. But I wonder if you get the sense that Victoria perceives the big picture.
I don't, and part of it is, I think these new initiatives that Ashley, the communications department, is doing is helping to spread that word. But I don't know that this community understands all these conversations and partnerships. So I'm glad you're here to explain that, because I think now it helps people realize that it is more than just, the city limits of Victoria.
Right. Yeah.
That we're trying to do. So
you can't see him smiling behind the mask. He's got great peripheral vision. He knows exactly what I just did.
Pat McDonald thanks us for having you on this morning. So there we go.
Pat, hope you're doing well.
Thanks for tuning in, Pat.
By the way, Madeline Meyer just said, "Hey, straight up, first thing we got to do is fix the duck pond."
We're on it.
Yeah, you are.
So we actually applied for a grant with the Texas Parks and Wildlife.
That's beautiful.
To fund that. The reality is that, to fix the duck pond and really get it in nice condition is going to cost us close to $1.5 million.
Unbelievable.
So we want to make sure that we can get a grant to help us accomplish that.
And then there's people out there, $1.5 million for a duck pond. But
So
people don't understand that, you can't just dredge it and fill it back up.
We can either buy. I want you to think about this. At $2,000 an acre, we can just go buy 700 acres. Is that right? 70. No. 700 acres with its own lake on it, and just build a new park and call that the duck pond for $1.5 million.
That'll get you the land. That ain't going to get you the park.
Now you're forgetting that the duck, to buy the duck, the beach duck goes for like $1,000 these days.
You got to clip their little wings. Do you have to make it? Is it because of?
And then you've got to build the roads to get there, and you're $1.5 million.
Put an industrial park around it.
Well, we're going to build it better than what it was before, and so it's not
$6 million duck pond.
It's not simply just. It's going to look different.
See, you're too young for that. The $6 million man, he wasn't around during that.
No, that'd be about a $20 billion
better than it was before. But the bionic duck pond.
But I think, Natalie's question, though, I mean, a lot of people really enjoy the duck pond in the city, and I think it was neglected for a long time. And then, and unfortunately, I think that's part of what happens when you don't prioritize something that was such a popular amenity. Sure. The price goes up when you finally get to it.
Well, I mean, if anything, it helps us understand what happens when you have deferred maintenance issues, right? And so we have that challenge throughout the city, obviously. And so how do we become more proactive with it? And that's why we've undertaken a new CIP process to be more proactive, educate council, educate the public, or whoever wants to tune in, and just what our needs are and what the issues are with facilities, with infrastructure, et cetera.
You said neglect. You said deferred, and Scott Tomko said infrastructure.
Right.
So take a minute, bring folks up to speed with the Crestwood project and how that's going,
sure.
And then what the future holds, the immediate future that as the CIP sits now, what's next?
Sure. So every year the city adopts a CIP plan, right? And so that literally ranges from $14 to $17 million every year that gets spent on a variety of different projects, from street projects to utility projects to water projects. I mean, it's really all across the board, right? And so we leverage a variety of different funding sources to do that. One of the things that makes our job a little harder is that we have restricted funds, right? So, for example, the money that people pay to pay their water bill, I can only use the utility funds, for certain purposes, right? General fund, certain purposes, Sales Tax Development Corporation, there's certain purposes, and so you have to kind of play that game, right? But anyway, and so we know based on when we're going to be finishing paying off some debt, that we're going to have some debt capacity to a pretty good extent between 2023 and 2033. And so we're trying to proactively go through all these master plans, educate council and everybody on all the needs, because probably for the first time ever, we are going to have the capacity to make a substantial impact on our infrastructure. And we want to make sure that council has all the information possible to make the best decision possible. And so that's where we are with that process. But we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And so currently, as was mentioned, we have the Crestwood project that is going on. We have some utility projects that were completed. We have an ASR project coming up. I recognize that sometimes these projects aren't visible or aren't sexy, right? There's nothing sexy about, spending over $1 million on an ASR well, which is an aquifer storage and recovery well that helps us, preserve water in case we ever need it. But people don't know about that, right?
Right. They just turn on the faucet and take it for granted.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Since 2000, the city has spent over $500 million in capital projects. That's a substantial amount of money. And to what extent have people felt that investment? I don't know. But that's obviously a combination of, again, things that are visible and things that aren't, right? There's nothing sexy about spending, millions of dollars on a wastewater treatment plant, but it has to get done, right? Nothing sexy about, expanding the landfill, but we know that it needs to get done. Right?
Yeah. Yes, what's interesting with that is I heard someone talking this morning on the way in. You just said we spent $500 million since 2000 on projects. That's the average cost of Hollywood movies these days. Each movie costs about $500 million to make it and get it out to the theaters. I mean, it's crazy. And that just sort of puts it, I don't know, look, it kind of puts it into perspective a little bit. We're talking about. Eddie Zuniga says, what about the bus stops? Some don't have benches or covers, and that's some people's main line of transportation to go to work, doctor's appointments and such, and they have to use some of the billboards for shade or stand in the rain. It's obviously a concern for Eddie. What's happening there?
The transit system is part of the Regional Planning Commission, and so they're responsible for that.
For them, that's maintenance, right? They're just, they've got a budget.
Maintenance, and I'm not sure where they are in the process, but I do know that recently they leveraged some federal dollars to replace many of the bus stops in some of our high traffic areas, and so I know they're working on that.
I've observed that's a place where your administration seems to have an advantage over prior and others in the region, is you guys are very astute at where to go get money that's available to help our city. There are lots of cities, folks, that just, if they need something, they raise taxes, or if they need something, they do without something over here. They rob Peter to pay Paul, if you will, inner office. What City Manager Garza has been doing is going and seeking the funds that are earmarked by the government at various levels, federal, state, whatever, to bring in and accomplish the things we want to do with money that's been set aside for us to use. Tell me, toot your horn a second on that. Tell people about some of the money that you guys have brought in.
Well, yes, that's accurate. We want to be very in tune with that because we recognize that our needs are this and our funding is this, right? And so the only way that we're going to try and make any progress is if we leverage grant funds. And so, for example, we have a full-time grants administrator position now for the first time ever with the city. This position, literally, her job all day, every day is to research grants, apply for grants, work with different departments to leverage some of that. And obviously that pays for itself, right?
And that's a more convoluted process than people think. People think, you just turn in an application and you get it. But
well, the hard part is the administration aspect of it, right? And so most people think that, okay, you apply for a grant, you get it, and it's over. That's the easy part. The hard part is the reporting, the paperwork that the federal government requires that you report back, the state paperwork that they require for you to report back.
The money was spent where you said it was going to be spent.
The red tape.
And so it's what happens after you get awarded the grant that's the most time-consuming part, and that's the part that oftentimes cities find themselves outsourcing, paying a third-party consultant to help with, things of that sort. But that can get really expensive.
We could do that third-party consultant deal. You can skip me an Ashton. Yeah. Well, but you hear these horror
for example,
stories.
The duck pond would be a perfect example, right? If we receive the grant, which we're obviously optimistic that we will, there'll be a small, matching component to it from us, but that would be $1.5 million that we wouldn't have to, pay.
Yeah.
And we could utilize that $1.5 million for streets or for drainage or for something else.
But it wouldn't be uncommon for a grant like that to come with a couple of little caveats and say, oh, by the way, you need to provide, it's the PETA duck pond, so you've got to provide a protein source for the ducks via a vending machine at all times, blah, blah, blah. I mean, people that give money sometimes have little nuances of how they give it, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's sometimes more common with private foundations.
Yeah.
But with state and federal grants, it's more of the reporting aspect of it that comes later. But obviously, for example, with Texas Parks and Wildlife, obviously the land has to be dedicated parkland. That's a big requirement of theirs. Obviously, it has to be open to the public. Things like that. You can't be charged.
Yeah, you're not fixing up your backyard with the Texas Parks and Wildlife grant. Yeah.
You're not charging money, for somebody to, use the duck pond, things of that sort. But they're pretty basic and typically a non-issue.
Well, do we want to give him the inside skinny on the Matt Boucher factor? I mean, like, you've gotten settled. You're here now. Everybody's here. I mean, people just take that for granted that you take a job and all of a sudden your family just magically appears. It takes a while to get your household in order and all that. If you have any soil problems, issues, thoughts about landscaping, Matt Boucher. We can hook you up. Doesn't cost nothing. He loves doing it.
I appreciate it.
Matt is the guy.
He is the guy.
He is the guy.
Anything on the horizon that citizens of Victoria need to know about? Is there something coming that's that people are going to be able to take pride in?
Airline between.
Well, obviously, hopefully the duck pond, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of projects that have recently completed. Plaza de Benavides, which was a $9 million project, that opened up a few months ago.
I've heard. I mean, there was a lot of wow, why we're doing it. Boy, from the people that get on there on Salem and whip
That's
around
nice.
to get to the north side
That's
of town,
nice.
the further north side of town, it's become quite convenient.
And once things kind of develop off of it a little bit, it'll maybe make a little more sense and things will flow a little better. But my point is, there are some pretty significant infrastructure projects that were completed. There's some pretty significant economic development related projects that are already being built up or on the horizon. Obviously, the new retail center. There's also a new medical office building that's going up close to Deep Tar North that we were involved with in helping make that happen.
Went up quick, too.
And so there are things that are going up. We're working still with UHV on the road diet of Ben Wilson and sort of in that area. And so there's some pretty big infrastructure related projects. Obviously, TxDOT's working on several that people may or may not realize who's responsible for.
Well, I was going to ask that question because Navarro's,
right.
I've seen.
But they're going to be doing the exact same thing on Rio Grande.
Yeah.
And so they're
going to blame you.
But you're getting blamed
Yeah.
on social media, or not maybe you personally,
city,
but the city is getting blamed for the Navarro median project. So maybe now is a good time to clear that up a little bit, because even some of our listeners are
if
somewhat
if people
misconstrued.
like it, it's all us.
Right.
Like, we did that. That's if people don't like it, I have nothing to do with it.
I want to give you one just to give you the gravity of the red. Janelle Sarr, somebody I've known all my life, literally her comment is, this city hasn't loved her citizens for a really long time. We are so hopeful since you've taken that job. So, I mean, it matters, man. And what you do, obviously, you got the logistics, the day-to-day drudgery of, because I know I call your office maybe 16, 17 times a week talking about airline between, Navarro and.
It's automatically set up to go to work.
Yeah, I know. It's, right? If you have a headache, press 1 now. If you would
That headache is Brent Carter.
If you would like Jesus to pray for you directly, press 2 now. Yeah, but that's, but the idea that everybody has their wants, whether it's roads and infrastructure or a duck pond, or how are we going to make some money off this, or why can't we get more businesses here, yada, yada, yada. That all falls in your lap. But the key word, I think, is hope. I think people are optimistic.
Right. I think that's about messaging, right? I mean, I think, folks in my line of work, they always care. But it's how are you communicating to the public? How are you engaging the public? That's what makes a difference, right? I don't like using the word transparency, because I think when people use the word transparency, it has negative connotations to it. And so for us, our goal is, how can we be more accessible? It's not about how can we be more transparent, but how can we be more accessible? Right?
I agree with you. I think when you say you're trying to be transparent,
we're already transparent, right? If people want to, they can find our budget online. If people want to, they can go to the council meeting, right? But it's how are we accessible? How are we providing the information? Are we providing it in a way that's easy to understand? I mean, I just mentioned that the city has spent over $500 million since the last 20 years, right? But how effective were we at communicating that to the residents so that they feel that there's investment going in, right? And obviously now with social media and all these other things, Ashley's done a great job in modernizing the way that we communicate with the public. And there's nothing rocket science behind what we're doing. We're simply just being more intentional with getting the message out. Because again, we're always doing great stuff, We just weren't successfully telling our story, and we can't depend on others to tell our story for us.
But it's got to be frustrating to know, and that it'll never be done. It's a journey, not a destination. You're never going to have, if you stay here your entire career. They talk about people that worked on I-45 out of Houston their entire career. It's never going to be done. I mean, you're never going to go, we finally finished everything on the CIP, because every year something new gets added to the CIP, And I appreciate it, and I think we've been dutiful, and it is a duty for us to report when it occurs. We've been dutiful to report when the advocate has morphed in the right direction. And I think that George Coleman and his team at the Victoria Advocate did a really solid job of relaying your comments about the fluidity and the living, breathing nature of the CIP, and that circumstances and availability of funds and all these different factors that come at the CIP make it's not etched in stone. It's got to be fluid. And I think that they did a good job. Most people in this city have no idea what the CIP is.
Sure.
And to get them to understand that, there is a plan. We review it monthly. It's rewritten and adopted annually.
Right.
The idea that I think people appreciate knowing that. It's good stuff, and y'all have done a good job of getting it out.
And we hope to do even a better job. Our vision for where we end up with this is literally an online platform that, is a CIP landing page where you could literally, have a map of the city, see all the CIP projects going on around town, click on them, get an update, all sorts of things, right? We want to be extremely accessible with the information. Because things are going on, and people need to know about it.
It's a great idea.
He's got a map of Victoria in his office, and he says big red exclamation points everywhere somebody calls him.
Yeah, and an easy button.
Right.
2 questions for you, because these are important for this weekend. Cowboys or Bengals?
I think the Fed.
he ain't got time to be watching the NFL.
I think the Fed.
Are you
Texans, Bears?
Texans, Bears? That's an easy one, Texans.
All right.
Are you a sports fan?
Yeah.
I mean, you're obviously an athletic guy, but I just didn't know if you had to be a Spurs fan at some point.
Absolutely. Spurs, definitely without a doubt.
I like their retro.
Although, back in the day, everybody loved the Bulls and Jordan.
Sure.
Back in my day.
Sure.
I know back in your day.
It was Bird Magic.
We like the Bulls and Jordan too.
In my day, it was Bird Magic. In his day, it was Wilt and Bill Russell.
Yeah. In my day, it was Michael Jordan, I guess.
Well, he was special. When people say who's the GOAT, I never hesitate. I go, it was MJ. Trust me. I said, Kobe might have tried to get some moves from Michael, but Michael never got nothing from Kobe.
No.
But LeBron James is just like a little asterisk, just right. Freak athlete. What can you do? You can't stop him. It's like a tight end that can dribble.
Yeah.
But
LeBron James is obviously, in my opinion, the best player, without a doubt.
What about when you were a Spurs kid? I mean, so you're looking at, did you grow up in San Antonio?
No, I grew up further south in Brownsville.
Okay. All right. Yeah, not a lot of NBA teams in Brownsville.
No.
Yeah. There's the NBA. Yeah.
Right over you can go over to McAllen and get the D League. Alonzo Cantu at the D League over there. Well, I'll tell you what, and we'll let you get out. We'll get out of your hair, but I really appreciate you coming in. We've talked about doing it on a more regular basis. Our listener base eats this up. They are an information-driven group of folks, and they are all, not even by and large, they are totally supportive of everybody on here, every comment. The communication we're getting comes directly from this office. I mean, these people, they're liking what you're saying. So anytime you have time to come back and just give us an update, want to give you an update, we're 45 days from being done on Crestwood, whatever, we'd love to have it.
Yeah, so, I love the opportunity to answer questions and really just communicate what's going on. Obviously, there's a lot going on, and hopefully folks appreciate it.
Absolutely. We appreciate you and encourage you to come back.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jesus. Appreciate it,
man. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed the visit this morning.
Have a great weekend. By the way, look, he looks good in free clothes. Look at that. That's nice. That's like an official uniform.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember this,
Explore Victoria.
I give you major plaudits for always deferring to
Fly United Express.
Right. Hey, that's going to be good, right?
Oh, I was about to say, Edward. Yeah. Heck yes. Heck yes.
But I tell you what, no, I was going to say, you're real quick to defer to the team. The team did this, the team did that. And there is no I in team. But remember, there are 2 I's in championship. So don't forget that.
That's right.
That's what Michael Jordan used to tell the Bulls. There's 2 I's in championship.
And there's an M and an E in team.
That's right. There is a
There
me.
you go. Hey, we appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch. We'll send that honorarium over to your office. Thanks so much for being here. Folks, that's going to bring us near the top of the hour. But we've got to tell you that real quick, and this is the beautiful thing about our sponsors. They understand that this is why we're here. Thank you, sir. And I'll tell you this. I'm going to just name them real
Bob
quick.
Watley says all the tears from Cowboys fans would fill up that new duck pond.
Right? We just get the Cowboys down there and talk about the past and make them just cry and fill the duck pond. And then be a saltwater duck pond. Would that be put a couple sharks in there?
It's not good for the ducks, I don't think.
Right? So let me just do this, folks.
Crocodiles, not good for the gators.
And with a thank you to the following folks. The Eisenhower dealership since 1926. White Trash Services, 550-1826. Razor IT Solutions, JP Hull and his team. Uncle Mud's Barbecue. Open all weekend around 11. The Gray Barn, 920-6803.
For all your party event design needs.
She can
give
design.
Cheryl a call.
You get your idea together. She'll help you make it look good. Wind Services, USA Concrete Coatings, 578-HOME. And then the Budget Blinds folks and the UPS store on 2 locations on Navarro. We're not going to give you the big testimonial except to tell you this. These folks provide this forum for you. So please support those that support us and understand that there's no other place. There's no other place that you can go in Victoria to have access to the plethora of great service people that we do. So thank you for listening. And we'll be back here on Monday. I won't be here Monday.
You won't be here Monday.
I'll
I'll be
be
here
Monday.
Appreciate everybody and all the birthday wishes earlier. So
Hey, happy birthday,
enjoy your
partner.
weekend. Thank you, man.
Love you,
Appreciate
man.
that.
All right. Good
We'll
job.
see y'all Monday.
Tell them to drive safely.
Yeah,
It's
please drive
Friday.
safely.
There you
Yeah, we'll get that in there.
Bye, guys.
Bye, folks.
Are we clear?
Not off YouTube yet.
Hey, have you all ever thought about having Lenny for the airport?
We need a translator.
He speaks airport.
He speaks minimal English. That's what I tell him when I talk to him. Lenny, you're